All right, join me for the math on the spot video. You're going to need scratch paper, so if you don't have any, pause your video now, go get some, and then you can join back up. All right, let's get started.
Oh, yeah. Oh, hey, I'm just looking at this nice little block of wood that I have here, which actually is the shape of a rectangular prism. And you know, that's fantastic. And you know why? Because this reminds me of a great math riddle. I know what you're saying. You're saying everything reminds you of a math riddle. But you know what? Math is all around us, and so it's not surprising that we have lots of math riddles. This math riddle, by the way, is about a wooden block that's in the shape of a rectangular prism, and a carpenter who actually wants to cut it for himself. Let's take a look and have some fun. Okay, a rectangular prism-shaped block of wood measures 3 meters by 1.5 meters by 1.5 meters. Question is, how much of the block must the carpenter carve away to obtain a prism that measures 2 meters by 1/2 meter by 1/2 meter? So basically, if you think about this as the rectangular prism, I can actually bring up the saw here. I'll bring up the saw right now. You ready? Here I go. Bring up the saw. Okay, and now we can actually just cut it for ourselves. So here's what we're going to do. We want to cut it for ourselves. There we go. All right, so we finally cut it. Terrific. Now, what we want to know is how much does the carpenter have to carve away in order to obtain the rectangular prism that has these dimensions. So let me move this over to here for now. Let me slide this back up to here. Get up. Thank you. Come down a little bit, please. Just down a little teeny bit. Thank you. Good. Okay. Now, so first let's find the volume of the rectangular prism before the cutting takes place. So in that sense, we know exactly how to do this, by the way, because everyone knows how to find the volume of a rectangular prism. It's just length times width times height. It's just like finding the area of a rectangle, except we have an extra dimension. So we have an extra number we multiply by, namely the height. So what do we have before we cut? Well, the volume before we cut will be simply 3 times 1.5 times 1.5. And what's 1.5? Well, 1.5 can be written as a fraction greater than 1 by writing it as 3/2, because 2 times 1 is 2 and 1 is 3. So this is actually 3 times 3/2 times 3/2. And you know how to multiply fractions. You multiply the numerators. 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. And you multiply the denominators. In this case, there's an invisible 1 here. So 1 times 2 times 2 is 4. And so 27/4, which, by the way, if you write that as a mixed number, is 6 3/4, is the volume, and we have it meters cubed, right? Meters cubed, it's meters times meters times meters, meters cubed. And so that's the volume before the cutting. So that's the volume before we cut. Okay, now, what's the block that we want? Well, we want to obtain a prism that has dimensions 2 by 1/2 by 1/2. So what would the volume be of the piece we want to end with? Well, that's going to be a volume of 2 times 1/2 times 1/2. And if we multiply the numerators, we see we get 2, multiply the denominators, and we get 4, and that can simplify to simply just 1/2. 2/4 is the same thing as 1/2, and then it's, again, meters cubed, because it's meters times meters times meters. And so that represents the rectangular prism we want to end with. And the question is, how much of the original block must the carpenter carve away in order to be left with this? Well, that's now a subtraction question, isn't it? Because we started off with this entirety volume. We want to end with this much volume. So what's the volume that we actually have left over? That's just a subtraction. And so what we do here is we simply subtract. And so what we do is we take 6 3/4, and we just subtract off that which we want to end up with. We want to end up with that 1/2 volume. And so when we subtract, what do we get? Well, when you actually subtract these things, what do we see? We see 6 1/4, and again, the units are meters cubed. And so, in fact, 6 1/4 is exactly the amount of wood that must be carved away. That's this amount right here that must be carved away in order to end up with the size that we want, with the dimensions that we want, and that has the appropriate volume. So the important thing here is that we can again see volume occurring all over. And it's not just in the classroom and in pictures, but actually with real pieces of wood that can be cut with real saws. I'm going to stop there because I don't want to cut a half in half. I'll tell you, math just makes me laugh, and I know it makes you laugh as well. And especially when we understand the ideas of mathematics, we can't help but smile because we are understanding really big ideas. Have fun thinking about volumes, and I will see you soon.
All right, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.